Happy Sunday, folks. Hopefully everyone's having a great weekend. In today's video, we're going to get into the latest Detroit Lions rumors. A lot of articles talking about trades. We're going to get into these trades, talk about the player. Would this be something that Brad Holmes would do? Is this a good thing, a bad thing? All of that in today's video. Without further ado, let's get this thing going. Do me a favor and smash that like button really quick. It really does help the channel out. It pushes the content out there. I would be much appreciative if you did something like that. Let's get into rumors now. A lot of articles are coming out about a said player that the Detroit Lions should make a trade for a player from the Philadelphia Eagles, Mr. Bryce Huff. It says Philadelphia can command a middle-round pick for the edge rusher who's in prime and logged 10 sacks in 2023, and Detroit should inquire about him. I mean, there's multiple articles. This is just one, and this is the other part of the article, or another article talking about this. There's many about Bryce Huff. The Lions don't have a reliable edge rusher other than Aidan Hutchinson. They haven't re-signed Za'Darius Smith in 2022. Second-rounder Josh Paschal hasn't panned out. Marcus Davenport re-signed with the team, but he's played in just 6 games over the last 2 years. Because of his injury, Huff could carve out of the starting role opposite of Hutchinson on the defensive line in Detroit. Who is Mr. Huff? 26 years old, 6'3", 255 pass rusher, obviously from the Philadelphia Eagles. He played also for the Jets. Now, he did do good in 2023, not so much last year. This past year, due to injuries, he's only had 5 solo tackles, 2.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 0 interceptions. So it's not like this guy is lighting the world on fire, but that's actually something that you'd say, oh, okay, maybe Brad Holmes then would look into it, because big-time names he wouldn't do. So I got a question for you before I get into it. Would you trade for Bryce Huff? T for trade, P for pass. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What I think about this idea in Lions trading for Bryce Huff, I just don't think that this is going to be the case at the moment. At the moment for trades for players. Why is that? Because we have the NFL draft coming up. Now, generally speaking, when you get into a couple weeks of free agency and then you got about a month before the NFL draft, free agency really dips, and then trades, generally speaking, probably happen during the draft or after the draft. Why is that? Because teams are looking for said players. If they didn't get lucky in the draft to get whatever they wanted to, then after the draft, that's when they can go trade for a player or, pick up whatever they can that they didn't acquire in the NFL draft. So if the Lions were to make a move for Bryce Huff here, it wouldn't be, in my opinion, anytime soon. I think they're going to focus on the draft with the 28th pick, with the 60th pick. They may trade up, they may trade down, but I think that's where we're going to get our edge. We all want edge, every one of us. I think that it's important to build this defensive line to make this team a strength, and you would have to think that they're going to take this position in the draft. Now, look, maybe things don't work out. Maybe the draft falls the ways that we don't want it to fall. Then they can make a move like this. I don't see them doing it, but it's a possibility. But I would not expect anything as of late. If you're talking about getting a Bryce Huff, I don't see it happening. I mean, there's literally multiple articles on this. 3 articles just, and there was more about Bryce Huff. Why is that? Because he is apparently on the trade block, according to a lot of Eagles fans and Eagles people over there. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a Detroit Lion, right? He could be on the trade block for sure. Doesn't mean that the Lions are going to go for that. I totally believe that they're going to go for the draft. Now, another player that the Lions were urged to trade for. So that was 3 articles just on Bryce Huff. And this one here, we talked about in another video, and that's why I didn't do the graphics for this, because it's kind of pointless. This was Kayvon Thibodeau. They're talking about it with a 5th-year option. Decision looming. A subsequent extension. New York has a decision to make that would patch forward and take Thibodeau. Should the Giants decide to maximize their trade value, Tibbs, now would be the time. Detroit has structure in place to tap into the pass rusher's potential as well as cap space to facilitate an extension should the team decide to do so. I don't believe the Lions are going to trade for Thibodeau. Multiple reasons why. First off, we passed on him in the draft for a reason. We liked Aidan Hutchinson. Secondly, if you don't remember, he was a player, a little bit controversial. Is noticed, is he a team first type of guy? Does he put all effort in every single down? Those are question marks about Thibodeau. I don't see that being something that the Detroit Lions would trade for or even try to acquire. Why is that? They're looking for Detroit Lion players, Dan Campbell type of guys. We know this now as fan base that's been watching this regime. We understand the type of players they identify who they would like to have on their team. And I'm sure a lot of people, including myself, thinks that Thibodeau would not be a part of what they would like to get. And I talk about the extension. In theory, right now, the extension could be good because the Lions, in theory, have money right now. But if you actually look down the road, they're not going to have money for it because they got to do Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, Jack Campbell, Aidan Hutchinson, Kirby Joseph. These are all gigantic contracts that are about to be coming our way. And this is the reason why I've been saying we haven't traded for a Myles Garrett, or we haven't traded, we didn't trade for Trey Hendrickson, even though he's still in the trade block. But that's the reason why they believe, in that the Lions regime believes, that they probably don't have the if to resign everybody. And they may be right in that asset. So I don't know if they're going to be making I don't believe they're going to be making any sort of splash trade. It could be a low-end trades. We've seen that. Za'Darius Smith last year is kind of a low-end trade. The NFL draft trade, so that's different. The Lions are always about trading in the draft. Excluding the draft, I just don't see a big trade occurring for that moment. Again, this is apparently Trader Day because another article coming up, Lions could throw caution to the wind and trade for Bengals' Trey Hendrickson. In this article, it talks about the Lions receive Trey Hendrickson. We give up a second-round pick and a third-round pick. And honestly, I would be fine with that trade compensation. I don't care. I think if you put Trey Hendrickson on this football team, you're immediately a much improved defense. I mean, you'd have two pass rushers. I would be ecstatic. I'm sure a lot of you would be ecstatic. But again, this is going to go into the extension aspect. Trey Hendrickson, 30 years old, looking for an extension. That's why he wants out of the Bengals. And we just spoke about it with Kayvon Thibodeau giving big money. Now, the difference here between Thibodeau and Hendrickson, and maybe Hendrickson and other players, is he's 30 years old. So if they were wanting to do some sort of trade, they could figure it in the contract to where they can ease it up, maybe a 3-year contract, right? And they could ease it up. So that's, of all the contracts of trades, this is probably would be the easiest of the hardest, if you see what I'm saying. I still don't see it happening, but it's because of his age. I don't think he'll get Myles Garrett money. Maybe a little bit under it, though. Pretty damn close. So I would love to have Trey Hendrickson on this football team. I don't see it happening. I don't. These articles are going to be popping up all the time. And I get it. We all want a pass rusher. I want it more than anything, but we got to be realistic and just understand what Brad Holmes has done in the past and now. And I don't believe the Lions would make a trade, a big-time splash trade for any players. I don't. Let's get into the open thread from Yahoo Sports, and I seen this one, and I actually liked it, and so that's why I wanted to cover it in today's video, because there's a question that I am very interested to see what all you Lions fans listening to this think about this question here, because I actually would like to do what the question is. I'd like to say yes to this question. So I'm going to ask you before we get into my answer, do you want the Detroit Lions to play on opening night? Do you want them to face the Philadelphia Eagles? Now, we faced the Kansas City Chiefs on opening night a couple of years ago, and we beat them. Philadelphia wins the Super Bowl. They'll be hosting opening night. Do you want the Detroit Lions to do that? Let me know in the comments below. My answer is yes. I want them to face Philadelphia on opening night. Why is that? Well, we can prepare for the one team, and then you get like a half a bye week after that for week 2, generally speaking. I would like to be the first game of the year again. It was fun. And let's keep it a buck. The 2 juggernauts in the NFC right now is the Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles. You can put Washington Commanders. They're in that mix right there. I think they're below a little bit. There's some other teams. But obviously, Philadelphia won the Super Bowl. They are loaded with talent. Wouldn't you want to go on the road week 1, face the Eagles on opening night? Wouldn't it just be awesome? I think it would be. I think it would be great. Get that game out of the way too, because it's a big game, right? So you get a big game like that. I would rather have that the first game of the year and then one of the last games of the year on the road, because you're going to Philadelphia. The weather's not going to be bad in September. I'm all about it, man. And I say yes. And look, we went to Kansas City against the Kansas City crowd, and those guys were hype, and we ignored it. And you know Philadelphia, their crowd is hype beyond belief as well. And I would love to go to Philadelphia and take on the Eagles. That would be a great opening game. It would be exactly the type of thing that I think Detroit, Dan Campbell would want, the Lions would want, and then you get to see who would win. If the Lions were to win the Commanders game, you get to see who could win potentially Lions and Eagles game. So give me your thoughts. Happy Sunday, folks. Adios.